Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm looking forward to hearing from all of the speakers, and I think first I want to hear from each of them about who they are and what they're here to talk about. So if you could, just give us a quick overview. Who are you?
Beautiful. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Shawna Oliver. I lead global benefits at Manulife. John Hancock.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here. Jodi, Enggasser. I lead technology for C&W services in the Boston area.
Hi everyone, I'm Shawna Islam with Enggasser. I lead the human resources team for Americas and South Africa. Very excited to be here. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am Jess Marble. I work for Care for Business. We're a leading provider of family care benefits in the benefit space.
Hello everybody, my name is Jason Serrato. I'm on the product team at Eightfold. I'm happy to be here. The part of our offering that I cover specifically covers career planning and talent planning. So excited to join the conversation.
Fantastic. Thank you, each of you, for being here. To get us going, I wanted to ask kind of a big question, but with a short answer. So for many companies, the pandemic has changed work as we know it, and the notion of work-life balance as well. I'm curious if you could quickly sum up in just a word or two how it's also changed employee expectations on what benefits can and should be.
So I'm going to give you 4.
Okay, 4 words. Good.
Aligned with corporate values.
Okay, great.
I would say mobile productivity and collaboration tool sets.
Ooh, okay.
I would say holistic. The expectations are the benefits should be holistic and should be diverse. So there's like no one size fits all.
I think employees expect flexibility from their company and their benefits.
So you mentioned coming out of the pandemic, I think one of the biggest differences between the employer-employee relationship is empathy. So a lot more.
I love that. Well, this is more or less the outline of the conversation today, so let's dig in. Perfect. You said, Jodi, talk a little bit about how benefits can be both a determining factor in help getting someone to join a company, but increasingly you're seeing that they're also being used to help retain and engage employees. I know you've instituted some new policies at C&W. Talk to me a little bit about what you're doing there.
So the vast majority of our population are frontline workers in the maintenance and engineering and janitorial custodial spaces. And these folks are typically really hard to engage with, and they feel less connected to the core given their mobile work responsibilities. They also tend to be a little bit less technically and logistically connected to the core. So recently we've rolled out a BYOD, or Bring Your Own Device program, whereby we're offering a monthly stipend for folks that opt in to the program, which will allow them to use their personal cell phone at work, where we will be able to then text them and call them, and also have them download some web-based applications that might be helpful and keep them engaged, not only with the company, but with their job responsibilities at our clients.
What are you seeing in terms of the retention and the response? I'm curious.
So I think we're piloting it now. So far, the response has been really overwhelming. It tackles some of the apprehension. The financial stipend has gone a long way in sort of convincing people into something that they may not have otherwise wanted to participate in. I think the combination of the financial stipend and more of the education about how they can be more empowered doing their jobs, they can access more tool sets that allow them to continue to develop by using their own phone, and it's sort of a much more straightforward way for them to access technology. It has been, really a really positive experience for us so far.
I think one of the things that's really amazing right now is if you look at recruiting and retention and where benefits play, right before the pandemic, in a list of 10, they usually fell around 7 and 8, right? Today, if you ask that question, it falls somewhere between 1 and 2, right? So what does that mean for us? It's our opportunity to ask for things. It's our opportunity to show our management team we matter, we're important, and it's our time to show to our employees, this is for you.
I love that. Yeah?
I think for us as a technology services and consulting company, we really lapped onto the fact that there's a flexibility now to work from anywhere. And I think that's a very important conversation that we have with the managers when they have to fulfill a position, we also have that conversation with potential candidates, So no more do we require the position to be based at a certain location, So that's a big benefit that we've added, and that's also helping us diverse set of talent pool to the organization. One of the other things that we have doubled down on is career development, because we somehow felt that, with all the remote work and hybrid work that was happening for a technology company, we cannot lose sight of that. More so because, it's a very important need for our employees, to keep themselves current, up to date with the technical skills and knowledge. So that's something that's a big, it has received a lot of focus, in the post-COVID era.
Absolutely. I mean, career development is that much more challenging when you've got a hybrid workforce who may be bringing their own devices, and you can't, there's all these new elements that are being introduced to the workplace. I wanted to ask Jason specifically because I know as both a podcaster and a blogger, this guy has many jobs. He recently wrote about how companies can develop a pay-for-skills reward strategy in the workplace. And that seems to me like a real opportunity to engage people on a new level. Talk to me a little bit about the approaches you're seeing and how other companies can identify and target these programs for workers.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of what we talked about today are different options and different tactics and strategies that you can take on. And in today's world, it's kind of like an all of the above strategy. It's just to what extent, in which direction, at which cost, right? So I think with things like talent intelligence and looking at it from a skills perspective, you get a look at your audience and your employee base through a different lens, and you figure out where are the skills that you're going to need to invest in the future. How do you want to align this with how you develop and grow talent? Think about build, buy, borrow strategies. Which skills are you trying to build? Whereas which ones may not be core to your business that you may want to just borrow for short-term projects and assessments. But I also think back to something that Shawna just said around how the ranking of these things is becoming increasingly important. So if you think about it, if you show someone your benefits, you're showing them not only a key part of your employer value proposition, but you're showing them a window to your culture. So if you think about it, it really is a key part of recruitment marketing and recruitment branding and employer branding. But back to the question around pay for skills, I think there's a movement with skills-based organizations and taking more of a skills-based approach where, you're starting to deploy multiple strategies to achieve different outcomes. And if you take that, you can start to hone in on these specific audiences and figure out how they can grow their career. And we've talked a little bit about today, keeping people employed within the same organization, but creating mobility. And I think it's a key part of having that conversation combined with some of the comp and benefits discussions, because sometimes it's, I don't know where I can go at this organization, or I don't know how I can get there. But sometimes it's, there are other obstacles in the way that are keeping me from pursuing that. So I think when you get to a total rewards comp and ben combined with career planning and career development strategy, you're able to kind of address the issue from both sides.
Yeah, Jodi.
One thing just to add on that, this topic is near and dear to my heart. Given our population, we do have a pretty robust skilled trades career development program. And the work that we've been doing lately is on making sure that through that program, we're meeting people where they're at. So using the data that we have in our systems to develop, algorithms essentially that help us map out those career paths for them, which allows us to show them that they have a path to the next level, what that path is, and it also helps them really fairly easily track their training steps to achieve goals. So they achieve, bite-sized goals at a time, which then helps them also, kind of maintain that momentum.
That's great. Benefits and total rewards used to be kind of a one-size-fits-all approach. It was open, you have open
enrollment.
Open enrollment?
Open enrollment, gosh, I should know that. Open enrollment, I blanked here. And everyone just signed up for what they wanted, right? But increasingly, they're being leveraged to drive diversity and inclusion efforts as well. Shawna, can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing at your company and also anyone else who is seeing this at theirs?
So you're so right that, it used to be one size fit all, one plan, everyone signed up for that plan and, everyone is, settled with that plan for the next 1 year. what has increasingly happened is also because of the diverse demographics coming into the organization and the level of awareness that the employees have, and being very intentional about that holistic balance that they are looking for. That has led to, the benefits landscapes drastically changing up in the post-COVID era. I think, from Total Rewards perspective, I think that was very important that change happened, because otherwise the focus was mostly on, just compensation.
Which is great. I still like compensation, but yes.
Yeah, very important, but there's so many other things that play a very important role, and is for that individual to have that agency and define what's important for them. So when the conversations happen in the post-COVID era, it's about, okay, you are offering me comp, you're offering me great benefits, what else can I look for if I join you, if I take up your offer and make you my next employer? I think that is a big change that we have seen in the post-COVID era.
Jess, you want to weigh in too, yeah?
Yeah, I think what 2020 through 2023 highlighted in every major news publication out there is what benefits can do to help or hurt employees. I think pre-pandemic, everybody kind of knew that, the FANG companies on the West Coast had the best benefits and it was just a thing. But now the everyday employee knows exactly what benefits are out there and what they don't have. And it's they're way more informed at a high level about the options that their employers can offer, which then helps to kind of enhance that demand for customization and flexibility from their employer. So if we're thinking about it in a marketing term, we have more informed buyers with much higher expectations.
Yeah.
So I also want to lean in a minute on the DEI aspect of this. So everyone in this room who's ever purchased some kind of benefit, we're all taught to look at things like, what's your financials, what does your network look like, who has access, and there's all the things that all the consultants tell you to look at, right? And you do all your analysis. And we build our programs assuming everybody goes up to the same starting line, right? We kind of create this start, if you will. And our presumption is that everybody gets up to this starting line and we lead and we communicate and we bring all of our employees up here. And then we presume that they cross it and everybody has this delightful experience. And COVID gave us the permission to say that's not what happened, because we started getting real about things that we talked about. And everybody in this room has a different experience when they go to see their provider, their clinician, their specialist, their mental health provider. And I want everyone to ask themselves, is that what you want from your benefits? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. That's up for you and your strategy. But to me, when I offer a program, I want everyone to have that really amazing experience when they cross that line. And if that's not happening today, it's my job to work with my team to make sure it does.
Jason, I saw your head nod there. You want to weigh in too?
Yeah, and just to say, with taking that conversation and applying it across a talent strategy, you think about trying to retain younger workers. You think about the need to retain experienced workers. You think about transitioning veterans. You think about trying to help women who were hit probably the hardest during the pandemic, right? Childcare, elder care, all these different things. So the same way you're trying to support DE&I from a talent strategy, you have to have it aligned with a benefits program that also helps those audiences.
Well, Jess, that's a great segue to the next question, which, Jess, according to some of the data you have, 70% of workers are also caregivers in some capacity. Either they're taking care of small children or they're looking after their adults in their lives. Can you share some of the ways you're seeing companies incorporate caregiving benefits into their retention plans?
Yeah. So prior to the pandemic, I think employer-sponsored child and senior care benefits were considered a luxurious benefit or a nice to have, again, recognized by the big name employers. But when the childcare ecosystem collapsed in March of 2020 and moving forward, basically employers recognized that employees have two choices: to care for the ones they love or to show up for work. And I don't know about any of you, but when it comes to my family, they're going to win every single time. So it became a business problem, a very clear business problem.
We saw them in the back of the Zooms, right? We saw that. I mean, that was my case, right? I had my kids running through them all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. So what we've seen, just like I said before, it's kind of the new expectation that you are offering some type of support. The cost of childcare on average is nearly twice the cost of in-state tuition. It is 4 times the cost that our government says should be affordable. On average, parents spend 28% of their income on childcare. And this is a problem because if it comes between spending your entire income, one person's income on work or on childcare, or pulling yourself out of the workforce, that's what's going to happen.
And I will say Massachusetts has some of the highest childcare costs in the nation. We were 1 or 2. It's usually us in Washington, D.C. We vie for that top spot every year.
Yes, we
okay.
are. Yeah.
Yeah.
But when it comes to using benefits and family care benefits specifically to help with retention and productivity, we see more employers investing in this, but also investing in strategies that address more than just childcare. Like the millennial generation is the largest generation in the workforce. It's also the largest generation in the sandwich generation. So they're raising kids, they're caring for their loved ones, and quite frankly, that is a massive burden to carry in addition to your job.
So what sort of programs and plans are being implemented to help that sandwich generation in the workplace right now?
Without being too salesy. So there's like, when we're thinking about how you're solving for this crisis, and you can, find the provider that's right for you, but there's 3 problems: finding care, affording care, and then navigating the unknown that comes with caregiving. I always say you can walk through Barnes & Noble and you find tons of books on how to raise a new baby, but nobody's telling you how to have those difficult conversations with dad when he needs to have his keys taken away, or how to navigate those relationships with your siblings when you're trying to figure out the best plan for mom. So we see employers coming to us and saying, hey, we need a tool for our employees to find care because half of our nation lives in a childcare desert, including beautiful Boston, Massachusetts. They need tools to afford care because it's 4 times the cost it should be, and they need help navigating because if they don't have that help, they're using the time on your clocks to Google and try to figure it out on their own.
Anyone else seeing this in their work? Yeah?
One of the things that we realized is, a very common training that used to happen back in the days, long time ago, that had to be brought back just because, the environment in which people were working, even at homes, it required a lot of balancing acts to be done. And there was a certain level of stress that went up. So stress management training is very much in vogue these days. That's something we used to think that, everyone is skilled, everyone is equipped, they can manage their stress levels. We had to, bring it back and make a conscious effort to ensure that people have those skills. They're very basic ones, how do you take a break between your work? The tendency could be that you're working 8 hours at a trot because you are just glued to your computer and your phone. But taking those kind of steps certainly helped us to manage some of the issues that we saw creeping up when we looked at our health reports. What we also tried to do is through the EAP sessions provide resources and tools for people if they are caregivers at home. How do they address some of those issues? Having that conversation with the service provider, getting that help, that kind of became part of the curriculum as well.
Jodi, I saw a little hand there.
I completely agree, having that the stress factors and the mental health issues that have really come to the surface as part of COVID have been an ongoing issue for us, especially with our hourly frontline folks, where sometimes the cultural challenges they have to asking for help and admitting that they need help are the biggest problems we have to overcome. So we are working with a vendor to do crisis texting, which is essentially not providing, psychological services, but just that first safety net for them. And it's text-based, and it's actually text and WhatsApp-based, which is WhatsApp being the primary method of communication that our folks use. So I'm excited to be parts of things where we see, technology coming together with resources, and again, going back to meeting people where they're at and understanding those cultural differences, because I think to your earlier point, there cannot be a one-size-fits-all.
Shawna,
I was just going to say, going back to the comment around childcare and elder care, at Eightfold, we have a chief labor economist who went into our platform and looked across all of our billions of pieces of data and looked at representation of women at every level across all of our aggregated customers. And at every level, associate manager, senior manager, director, executive, from the progress that was made, prior to the pandemic to where we've been coming through the last few years, there's been a receding of anywhere from 4 to 10% at every level. And one of the biggest causes was childcare and elder care, and it was identified as one of the biggest potential solutions.
Wow.
I
Jumping
know a
back
guy.
into the mental health conversation, because I think it's a big one. And I think, I'm seeing it in my workplace. I think most of us are probably seeing it in ours as well. Shawna, I know this is a big issue for you. And I know this is something you've been working on a lot with John Hancock. I love that there's a crisis text line, but I'm really curious how you can manage and help employees with mental health when they're not in crisis, so that that's not the only situation when you need it, right?
Yeah, so thank you. To me, it's all about removing barriers. I think about kind of 4 main barriers, if you will. The first one is access. We hear a lot, it's hard to find a provider, and I don't know if anyone here has heard that from someone either an employee or a fellow friend or colleague. But the reality is there are solutions out there that offer same or next day appointments. They exist. I'm sure there's 1 or 2 here that will tell you they do that for you. We need to offer them, and that's it, right? Whether it's digital, asynchronous, virtual, there are solutions out there that can solve this problem. The second is relevancy. The reality is there was a point in time that 92% of mental health providers were white women. That's an issue, right? It's an issue if somebody feels that they're not going to be seen or heard before they even make their appointment because they're not going to. So it's important that whatever solution you look at is culturally sensitive. They have the ability to either do cultural training or have an extraordinarily diverse set of providers so that no matter who you are, how you identify, what you believe, there is somebody for you on whatever side it is that you're looking at. There also should be no limitations. Many mental health solutions have a set number of limits or there's a cost associated with it. We here in the US have preventive health care physically for free, right? You can go get an annual physical, you can get all these amazing tests done and it costs you nothing, but we tell our employees, you can go get a few visits or you pay for your mental health care, and it's unacceptable. We cover mental health care for free at John Hancock. We cover most of it for free in Canada as well. If you take anything away from today, pay for mental health care. It's the biggest gift you can give your employees and their families. And the last one I would say is stigma. We all talk about it. If you've ever had to use the phrase, I need help, it is the hardest thing to say. I've had to say it myself multiple times. Talk about it publicly. I talk about it internally. I've talked about it in front of our employees. They need to hear leaders say that they have been in their shoes, they've walked it, and they have someone that they feel safe in a safe space that they know they can say those words to.
I love that, so important. Anyone else want to talk about what they're seeing in their own workplaces along those lines? Shawna's got it covered, amazing. When we talk about, so one of the key things I think we're all thinking about right now is that the insurance costs are going up, and we're all dealing with that. How are you measuring, and what tools are you using or suggest companies should use to keep costs in line with the expectations that employees have now too? Because those two things also have to go hand in hand.
I mean, just in terms of, I'll focus on the setting employee expectations part first. I think a lot of that is around education. So, moving toward total compensation statements that talk about more than just traditional compensation salary if they're bonus eligible, but also explaining the cost of the additional benefits the company covers on your behalf, so that they can see the investment that you're putting into them. And then also explaining that, and it doesn't have to be a detailed, financial statement or financial analysis, but helping them understand the portion of the company budget that goes towards employee health and well-being, so that, there isn't, first of all, it's transparency, and second of all, there's that ability to understand that, the money has to come from somewhere. Talking about how you're negotiating with benefits companies, right? So I think boiling it all down to, the way that you're helping to educate folks so that they are empowered with the information they need to think about it on their own.
I love the line. I love what you said about transparency, and I'm really curious where and how you're seeing that in each of your workplaces, just in terms of more transparency, opening up I don't know, maybe you're not opening up your books per se, but you are being a little bit more open with employees. Where and how is that manifesting? Yeah, Jess.
So one of the things that we do at CARE is we can see exactly how much our benefits cost our employer, how much they cost CARE, and then how much we're paying. It's on our pay stubs, and then when we enroll in our benefits every year, we're educated on that. And then every time we either sunset or bring in a new benefit, we're super transparent about why we're doing that, using employee survey data to address a greater need than something that perhaps is being sunset or something that's underutilized. So just being completely open about the cost that's being incurred on their behalf and then the reasons behind the changes that are taking place. And on that survey note, we've seen higher survey participation from our employees when a meaningful effort is made to kind of read back the results of those surveys and then share, a month or two later, like what's feasible to address in the short and long term.
I love that. You don't learn unless you're measuring, right? It's exactly that idea. Shawna?
One of the things that we do is to give them an understanding of the industry, healthcare industry per se, and it's common knowledge. There's a lot, but employees really don't access such information, but we ensure that they have access to that information through the portals that are in use. So that way it's not like, a point in time where they are shocked by, what's happening. You're building up that awareness. The second thing that we do is, we also hire from employers like us, technology industry. We lose to technology companies, we hire from them. So there's an active benchmarking process that's on when we are having the often discussion, and they do realize that, okay, if I'm getting this, which is far better than what I had with my previous employer, and there's some industry standards around that, what's my responsibility on how do I ensure that this continues? Because it's a business, there's a cost pressure, services industry, all such nuances. So that kind of discussion starts off very early on in the process.
So one of the things we do is we host a Benefits Ask Me Anything session every year around annual enrollment. And we spend some time studying how employees perceive and receive employee benefits communications. It fundamentally changed how we communicate with our employees. We went from getting on average about 100 participants in these sessions to we now, I think the last one we did for annual enrollment had almost 3,000 people show up. So we get over 50% of our employees come. It is mostly unscripted, it's me. I go through what are we doing this year, are costs increasing, why they're increasing, what's changing, and then I open it up full Ask Me Anything Reddit style and take every question. We remove any kind of personal health information or personal identifiable information, and we let people ask questions, good or bad, give feedback, and people stay for over an hour. And we're super transparent. If they say great, let's talk about it. If they say bad things, let's talk about it. And this has now been going on for multiple years. We've kept this, we just started a new round of sessions called Your Benefits Are More Than Copays and Deductibles. We get about 30% of our employees to come. What that's told us is they want to know. We're just not communicating to them the way they want to be communicated to, and we're starting to figure that out.
I love that, just like switching the model a little bit and allowing people to come and just open up for questions can really kind of change the game there. That's terrific. Anyone else sort of seeing that sort of shift as well within how employees are engaging with offerings? Yeah.
I think they're feeling more like they are part of the solution now. I can remember myself even feeling like whatever was the decision that was coming from executive leadership was going to be pushed down on us, and we didn't really have a say or a choice. But speaking to surveys, when we would switch providers, people would actually be able to be part of, you could raise your hand to be part of a council and they made sure that council had, a slice from the various types of populations in the company. And you would have an opportunity to review the types of benefits and at least feel like your voice was being heard. I don't know how much weight each of our voices was carrying, but it definitely helped feel like we were a part of the process. And I think thereby making you feel like you are more engaged through the entire process every year.
Beyond benefits, there's also just the basic idea that you're going to be empowering managers to better connect with employers, right? Those connections are so important, and even more so now as we work on hybrid work and other environments that are vastly different than what we knew before. How can we better empower managers to provide feedback and support in ways beyond just a performance review to make sure people are getting the support they need? Jess, do you want to start there?
During benefits season, we often work with clients, and there's always brainstorming around how do we better communicate benefits. And my number one recommendation is a mandatory manager training as part of your annual manager training. Your managers are on the front lines of your workforce. They're the first to hear about a child missing school or a parent being sick. They're the first to identify some of those triggers that are going to be disruptive to the workforce. So if you empower managers to have the tools to help employees get started on solutions, it's going to come back, and benefit you, because then managers are going to be empowered to come to you and ask for solutions that will address some of the pain points that they're hearing in the workforce.
I love that.
I think this goes back to the title of the session with how total rewards and career development go hand in hand. You mentioned the dreaded word performance review, right? I remember the time where we were saying how performance reviews were awful and managers were horrible at them, and we were asking them to do them 5 or 6 times a year. Right? You're really bad at doing this once. I want you to do it more often.
Keep
right?
going. Yeah.
So I think a key part of this is, like, as has been mentioned, giving managers more resources, more information to help remove obstacles for their team. I think that's a key part of what managers are asked to do. I mean, we're putting more and more on them, just like, instead of doing this once a year, do it every 2 months or so. But what are we providing them to make that conversation more effective, more strategic, more valuable, right? So, with Eightfold, we build a process that helps with the career side of this, career development, career planning, where can you go next, what training can you do? But as mentioned, sometimes it's the visualization of that and making that a reality, but sometimes that's not what's holding that person back. Sometimes it's the availability to work, it's the schedule, it's return to office, it's a variety of things. And to the extent that we start to combine these worlds and have some of these how are you doing conversations, and it could be both from wellness and benefits to also career development, I think that'll help, like as said, remove some of these obstacles.
I'm seeing a lot of nods. Jodi, yeah.
2 things. One, I'm always going to go back to technology. I apologize. It's like beating a dead horse. But we try to scale it beyond the once a year or twice a year conversation. So really live feedback. So we really encourage managers to coach as they witness, and to do that by whatever mechanism they're comfortable with. So, we're a big teams shop. So if you're in a conversation with one of your team members and you're noticing something about the behavior, you have like a gentle nudge, or you just want to say, hey, great job, then do that immediately, right away. Ping them and let them see that. We use Workday, so we have, special call outs and badges on Workday. We really encourage the use of LinkedIn to call people out and give kudos. And at the same time, I think it's making sure that you're also meeting managers where they're at and understanding what is preventing them from having those ongoing conversations. I know for me personally, it was really hard to give constructive criticism or negative feedback, which is not doing my employees any favors, right? And just taking specific trainings to help guide me through those very uncomfortable conversations where I would be excessively sweating and feeling very nervous was super helpful. And now I have 10 beginning of the sentence phrases on my desk that help me just get the conversation started, and it flows from there.
Well, that's great.
I would just like to add an experience that we had with our managers once, they went remote, hybrid model set in. We realized that these conversations were more difficult in that model because we were onboarding a lot of people remote, and the conversations that were being had was more about tasks and transactions. So an intentional effort that we did was to announce a week's effort just on knowing that individual that you're working with, having that small talk, breaking that ice, getting to know that individual, establishing that trust and relationship, which was so easy when people were working out of offices, That really helped us, get to the next level where people started bonding with each other as teams. And, then the whole process of having those difficult conversations kind of became smoother.
Yeah, if you're just a taskmaster, it feels like there's no real connection there. You don't understand your employees. I love that. It's good to see all of that happening. One question I had too, we talked a little bit about how companies have always been trying to find whatever cutting edge benefits are out there, and so many have been implemented, and yet once they're implemented, we don't always go back and just assess how well they're actually meeting the need. I'm thinking of fertility treatments for one, which many people were implemented them a decade ago, but fertility treatments have gone leaps and bounds beyond. Talk with me a little bit about keeping pace. Once a benefit's in place, once it's there, how do you assess how well it's working for your employees, and what are some changes you've seen happen in your own workplaces to better address those needs?
Yeah, so maybe I'll start. So I think there's a lot of ways you can take the answer to this question, but I think first I would say, we all look at claims data, we look at engagement, we look at, we bean count how many people are using, value, return on investment, value of investment. We're all really trained to look at data, which is great. But who in here really looks at who's not using your benefits, right? That's just as meaningful. If you have pockets of employees with commonalities that are not using your benefits, there's something wrong with your benefit, right? So I would encourage everybody, look at your data, look at who's not using your benefit, what's not in your data, because it's really those two combined that's telling you your total story about what's going on in your program. So look at both. The other thing I would say is there are some really cool things coming out, right? So there's all these micro benefits, whether it's like men's health or menopause. There's like trans health companies coming on. It's so amazing how specific and dedicated there's some companies that are coming out with. What's really cool is that some of our largest payers are forming relationships with these, but we don't even know about it, right? So there's large payers that have all these little boutique shops in there, these micro benefits. There's voluntary benefits and law services that have caregiving benefits embedded into them. And now there's even companies like Wellist out there that can look and say, look at all your micro benefits. Or there's companies like Violet that can look and say, here's how diverse your networks are. So again, it's our jobs as employers to say, what can we keep doing? Because it's great that the market is bringing us things, but it's our job to keep pushing and saying what's next and what can we do better for our employees.
I love that. What's next? What are you seeing in the benefits and total reward space? What do you predict for the next 3 years? Any big predictions?
3 years?
What's that?
Well, I would
3
say
years,
maybe
5
3
years?
years. Yeah, I would say, and I'm just going to beat on the AI drum a little bit. I think we're going to see a lot of use of data to tailor benefits to potentially even at the individual level where that's not possible today. I would say AI for sure.
AI and everything. Yeah.
In everything.
I think I would agree with that. I think it would be a lot more customized approach. Today we still go with a specific plan, and most of the folks adhere to that plan, right? But I think as time goes by, it would be very customizable for each individual. And I think technology will certainly have a lot of role to play there from administration perspective, from education perspective, and while meeting all the requirements that the enterprise has.
Fantastic.
I think there's going to be an evolving expectation of benefit providers to work better together and integrate with one another. I mean, HR and benefit leaders are working so hard to curate these puzzle pieces, and the best way you can service our clients or employers is to make sure that you're like truly integrated with the rest of their benefit plan. And can kind of ebb and flow with the other providers that they offer. So I think expectations are going to change of the providers that we're bringing in.
And I think I just echo what the panelists said. I think just like what we do, increasingly it's transparency and personalization.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, that'll be the topic of our next conversation when we meet here again. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking the stage and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you.